But that's when I had to kind of discover who I was. The divorce was very nasty. And again, rightfully so, because we didn't understand how to fight outside of our emotions. And so that's kind of how I started developing the BU and finding who you are as an individual. Because unfortunately, when we have unforgiveness in our hearts, we're talking out of that pain. We're talking out of that anger. We're talking out of that frustration. And we don't really rightfully divide what should be versus what should be because I'm angry. So that's kind of how that bitterness kind of developed, because I'm just like, you shouldn't do this. And unfortunately, our first two kids actually suffered from that because we're bitter, we're upset, we're angry. When you can do that at your mama's house, well, you do that over at your daddy's house. Unfortunately, the first two kids kind of got it a little tougher. The baby, not so much, because by the time he was born and was able to kind of grow up, me and him had kind of filtered out of that a little bit.
Oh, that's so powerful. That is so powerful. You are such a powerful being.
Oh,
my goodness. You started from such a young age.
Yeah.
You started, and you must have, were you in love with him by any chance?
I loved him.
You fall in love? Yeah.
I have to say I loved him. I can't really tell you I was in love. But even now, I still love him. Not in a I want to be with him. Yeah, far from that. There's 6 phases to love. So I would never want anything bad to happen to him. But it's not one of them. I want him back. Wife, you can be rest assured. I don't want your husband if you ever see this. So it's over and done with. But
it's a soul contract. It's a soul contract. I believe that these kinds of relationships, marriage, when we have kids with somebody, it's not something that happens by accident.
Right.
I believe that we do connect with people like this for particular reasons, and it's beyond our understanding sometimes. And I really cherish these types of contracts, those contracts that are really life-changing. So they may seem like they've come from the devil, but actually sometimes, because I've also been divorced. I've been divorced twice. And it really helps us to understand that they have come to help us to be a stronger being, to really dwell within our true self even more. But it's a painful process.
It can
and
be.
If we do come to that place of strength when we do the work. Because there are lots of us who will go through those things, those situations where we lose parts of ourselves. Because you lost being a mother, being a wife. You lost, because as the wife of the pastor, you're a leader in your church, in your congregation. There's prestige and status that goes with that. And divorce, naturally, even when you don't have all of that social status, you do lose friends. Some people go with a man, and somehow in society, it's very rarely do you have the woman coming out of that with more friends.
Right.
Because I remember in my situation, I actually lost some of my female friends to my ex. It's always interesting. Yes.
I'm like, you were supposed to be my girlfriend.
What happened to that, So there's a lot of loss that goes with it, and you lose parts of yourself. But I love how you said, because even then you were a strong being. Because even then you said you remembered that you were a mother. That part of you was still strong. So, because sometimes when we reflect, we sometimes can see that we were there all along. We were empowered all along, but we did not see it. So I wanted to reflect that back to you, that some of the things you said, some parts of you were lost, but you did not lose your core. You actually allowed yourself to remember the parts of you that were strong, and you went into the therapy and you took the time to heal. And I love the fact that you are now someone you can say, I still love him, but not in that way. And that's okay. That's okay. I would love to hear more, Tiffany, about the tool of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because I know that for me, forgiveness is a superpower. It is something that has really enabled me to see the synchronicities and allow myself to open up to the opportunities a bit more, because we always have opportunities around us.
Sure.
But the only thing that stops us from grabbing them is when we want to be hard on ourselves, when we listen to that critic. I want to know how that went for you, how you came to a place where because it's also in degrees, it's also in levels. Some cuts are very deep and will not be healed in one sitting. Some require years. So I also think healing is a journey.
It definitely is. And should enjoy the journey.
It's about enjoying that journey, isn't it? Knowing that there'll be ups and downs. But each time we go up, we don't come down as low as we did last time. As long as we're reflective, as long as we're doing the work. So how did you come to use forgiveness? And then I'll also want to know how you support your clients.
Okay.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes show. I am your host, Bola Abimbola. And this is the show where we interview experts, authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in spirituality, psychology, and leadership for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest from Florida, Tiffany Rochelle. Hi, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. This is exciting.
Welcome to the show. And I'll read a bit about your bio before we start. Okay. Tiffany Rochelle is a coach, a talk show host, and an author. Tiffany says in her brokenness, her purpose was being revealed to her, in building her. She says God brought her out, so now she walks in her breakthrough. She draws on her failures and shortcomings to deliver real life messages that encourage others to know they can win, as failing is not an option to quit. Tiffany is committed to winning, speaking faith and hope to single women and teenage mothers, so they can be healed. If this teenage mother of 3 can win, you can and will too.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining me, Tiffany. I do want to know about your perspective, that perspective of being broken.
So I believe for me, the brokenness really came as I started at a young age with life. And what I mean by that is at 15, I got pregnant, and at 15, I got married. At 16, I had my first son, and he is the love of my life. All of them are. I can't say that because I got 3. So I got married. We were married for 17 years. Not 17 years, excuse me. We were married for 7 years. That was still my growing process because I was 15 when we got married. So I just started puberty. I just became a mom and I became a wife. So for me, some of the things that individuals experience later on, either in their late 20s or later on in life, I hit it right after puberty started. And I'm saying really only saying after puberty because I think my lady had only came maybe like a year prior to that. So I'm really developing myself. So we had 3 kids together. They're adults now. They're 26, 25, and 21 now. And I got a grandbaby. But so life started super, super early for me. So in the process, I was trying to attempt to discover who I was. But that part failed for me. And I'm only saying that failed because I had to put on the mask of being a wife and a mother. And then at that time, he decided to start pastoring. So then I put on the face of being a pastor's wife. So who Tiffany really was way back here. But, the mom, the wife, and the pastor's wife, that's who you guys got the opportunity to really see. So who Tiffany was, I really don't know anymore because I knew that, I knew because I know myself all of my life, but you kind of knew the little childish individual. But now, 15 years old, I'm a whole woman, kind of. So those are some issues that transpired. So I got my first two. They're considered to be Irish twins because they're the same age for 4 days. And then I have my third child. He was born 4 days later. So all of them have the same birthday-ish. They're just 4 days apart. So there was one big party. Nevertheless, things didn't last too well, and we didn't do too well as far as marriage-wise go. We kind of grew apart, and rightfully so, because at that time he was 18 and I'm 15. So like life is just kind of starting for us, but it really wasn't starting together, so to speak. We had a portion of life, but as we're starting to mature and things are changing, and you're acting childish and you're acting selfish. To a degree, rightfully so, we should be, because we're still growing into ourselves. So, but it's just those selves that we were growing into isn't the selves that we knew of each other. So it became different, and we didn't know how to handle that. So divorce came. I became a single mother of three. And that was a transition, because now it's like I've lost two titles, because I'm now no longer the pastor's wife, and I'm now no longer a wife at all. So now who am I? Like, I know I'm a mom. I've kind of mastered that a little bit. But now I'm a mom. So what do I do? Where am I supposed to go from here? But that's when I had to kind of discover who I was. The divorce was very nasty. And again, rightfully so, because we didn't understand how to fight outside of our emotions. And so that's kind of how I started developing the BU and finding who you are as an individual. Because unfortunately, when we have unforgiveness in our hearts, we're talking out of that pain. We're talking out of that anger. We're talking out of that frustration. And we don't really rightfully divide what should be versus what should be, because I'm angry. So that's kind of how that bitterness kind of developed, because I'm just like, you shouldn't do this. And unfortunately, our first two kids actually suffered from that, because we're bitter, we're upset, we're angry. When you can do that at your mama's house, well, you do that over at your daddy's house. Unfortunately, the first two kids kind of got it a little tougher. The baby, not so much, because by the time he was born and was able to kind of grow up, me and him had kind of filtered out of that a little bit. So the baby didn't really experience all the extraness or all the hurt that the first two had to endure. So life happened. I had to grow up. I definitely believe in therapy. I'll never forget who God is, because he brought me through a whole lot of stuff with battling suicide. Again, not being a wife anymore, not being a pastor's wife. I'm a PK. So I'm a PK. I'm always going to be. I'm a preacher's kid. So me knowing the Lord, or even forsaking him, for some people, it's like, forget it. After I go through as much as I have, I want to turn my back on him. That wasn't my testimony. So it just became different. I had to learn me. I had to develop a relationship for myself with God, not just a relationship because people need me. This was a one-on-one relationship that I really had to develop for myself. So I'm talking to him, him meaning God. I'm talking to God, and I'm like, hey, I need some answers, but taking that time to listen, to see what he's saying, and then taking heed to what I heard him say was a challenge for me, or because it's something new. It wasn't something that I had to say, oh, wait, husband, what did you hear the Lord say? All right, now we're going to do it. No, I actually had to, really realize who God was and listen to him, and then obey his voice for myself. So after I went through therapy, I got me a coach also. And I sat down with me, started to develop me. Then that's when I realized I'm not as bad as I thought I was, because after divorce, I felt like I failed. And so I failed at being a wife. I just felt like I was a failure. Things didn't work out right. And then I realized I'm not a failure. That just didn't work out. But that doesn't mean that I completely failed. So I had to really put a different perspective on that. The first thing I had to do, though, was forgive me, because I felt like you're bad, you're not good for anything, you're worthless, life just isn't worth living. So I had to go through a process of forgiving me and realizing I'm not as bad as I was making myself feel. And I kind of started seeing myself as other people see me, meaning other people would say, Tiffany, you're so cool. You got such a great heart. You are amazing. And I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about. I'm not she. So then I kind of seen, as I took time for me and I started going through my healing process, I'm like, man, I'm not that bad. Like, I am kind of cool. Like, oh, your heart does love. And I really realized the compassion that I showed for other individuals, I started doing that towards myself. And that's when I realized, like, oh my God, you are an amazing individual and you got a good heart. So then I started pouring into other women, and I didn't want them to do life alone. That's kind of how I became the people's cheerleader. And I'm that individual that has my hand in your back, pushing you to become a better you. And I never want any woman to do life alone, because after I got through the divorce, I kind of felt alone. I kind of felt like, who wants me? Even one guy that I dated, he was like, nobody's going to ever want you. You got 3 kids, you're broken, you've been married before. And I kind of took on his words and I was like, he's right. Who is going to want me? Nobody. So I kind of start taking on that. But then the minute I forgave me, it still was a process. It did not happen overnight, but I had to divorce the memory from the moments that I had. So I still remember the good individual I am. I still remember some of the bad stuff that I had, but I just don't live in that moment anymore. So that's kind of key.
Oh, that's so powerful. That is so powerful. You are such a powerful being.
Oh,
my goodness. You started from such a young age.
Yeah.
You started, and you must have, were you in love with him by any chance?
I loved him.
You fall in love? Yeah.
I have to say I loved him. I can't really tell you I was in love, but even now I still love him. Not in a, I want to be with him. Yeah, far from that. There's 6 phases to love. So I would never want anything bad to happen to him, but it's not one of them. I want him back. Wife, you can be rest assured, I don't want your husband if you ever see this. So it's over and done with.
But it's a soul contract. It's a soul contract. I believe that these kinds of relationships, marriage, when we have kids with somebody, it's not something that happens by accident.
Right.
I believe that we do connect with people like this for particular reasons, and it's beyond our understanding sometimes. And I really cherish these types of contracts, those contracts that are really life-changing. So they may seem like they've come from the devil, but actually sometimes, because I've also been divorced. I've been divorced twice. And it really helps us to understand that they have come to help us to be a stronger being, to really dwell within our true self even more. But it's a painful process.
It can
and
be.
If we do come to that place of strength when we do the work. Because there are lots of us who will go through those things, those situations where we lose parts of ourselves. Because you lost being a mother, being a wife. You lost, because as the wife of the pastor, you're a leader in your church, in your congregation. There's prestige and status that goes with that. And divorce, naturally, even when you don't have all of that social status, you do lose friends. Some people go with a man, and somehow in society, it's very rarely do you have the woman coming out of that with more friends.
Right.
Because I remember in my situation, I actually lost some of my female friends to my ex. It's always interesting. Yes.
I'm like, you were supposed to be my girlfriend.
What happened to that, So there's a lot of loss that goes with it, and you lose parts of yourself. But I love how you said, because even then you were a strong being. Because even then you said you remembered that you were a mother. That part of you was still strong. So, because sometimes when we reflect, we sometimes can see that we were there all along. We were empowered all along, but we did not see it. So I wanted to reflect that back to you, that some of the things you said, some parts of you were lost, but you did not lose your core. You actually allowed yourself to remember the parts of you that were strong, and you went into the therapy and you took the time to heal. And I love the fact that you are now someone you can say, I still love him, but not in that way. And that's okay. That's okay. I would love to hear more, Tiffany, about the tool of forgiveness,
Yeah,
because I know that for me, forgiveness is a superpower. It is something that has really enabled me to see the synchronicities and allow myself to open up to the opportunities a bit more, because we always have opportunities around us,
sure.
but the only thing that stops us from grabbing them is when we want to be hard on ourselves, when we
Right.
listen to that critic. I want
Mhm.
to know how that went for you, how you came to a place where because it's also in degrees, it's also in
Mhm.
levels.
Absolutely.
Some cuts are very deep
Mhm.
and will not will not be healed in
Right.
one sitting. Some require years. So I also think healing is a journey.
It
Uh,
definitely is. And should
so
enjoy the journey.
it's about enjoying that journey, isn't it? Knowing that there'll be ups and downs. But
Uh-huh.
each time we go up, we don't come down as low as we did last time. As long as we're reflective,
Mm-hmm.
as long as we're doing the work. So
Mm-hmm.
how did you come to use forgiveness? And then I'll also want to know how you support your clients.
Okay. Well, so for me, I have courses to answer your latter part, and then I'll get to there. I
Yes,
have
talk
courses
about. Yeah, well, I want to
and
hear about that.
okay. So I definitely have courses that you can do individually with me. Journey. My thing is definitely matters of the heart. Because I believe out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth speaks. So if you're a bitter individual, you're kind of going to hear that bitterness come from you. So it's just like, oh, I can tell you I love you. And those same three words, if I change my tone and the texture in it, it sits differently. So I can tell you I love you, and you're like, oh, she really does love me. But I say, I love you. You're like, oh, I don't believe that. Like, whoa. So, but I'm kind of upset and I got something that's going on. So for me, I believe in trying to excavate some of the bitterness that you have that's in your heart, taking time out and saying, you know what, I'm not in a good mood right now. I'm not happy. And it's okay to be in that mood. Just don't
Yeah,
stay. And
yeah,
so I really try to teach the ladies that I'm dealing with, again, embrace that moment that you're having, just don't stay there. So because if you're talking to a person when you're angry, that's the worst thing that you can definitely do is to have a conversation with somebody when you're angry. You can definitely still mean all of those words, but again, the texture and the tone will make me feel like you really don't love me. You really felt that way, and how, I want you to say how you're feeling while you were angry. I just don't want you to say it in that moment because I want to be able to receive what you're saying. But I kind of can't because I hear your anger, I hear your frustration. And I don't want to hear that. I want to be able to receive, you know what, Tiffany, I didn't like the fact that you wash clothes, you put them in the dryer, and you didn't fold them. But you're lazy. You never do anything. No, do it. I just didn't do it this time. So being careful with your words, it definitely matters. So I go through courses. You can either just get the course yourself and go through it all alone, or you can do a one-on-one or a group session with me. You just have to do the initial chat. We'll see if we're good for each other. I won't say that I take on every single woman that comes in my path because I'm not for everybody. I'm not their ministry. So we go through a one-on-one. We'll go through an initial chat, see if we're good for each other. And if you want to go one-on-one, we can. Or if you want to just do the course all by yourself, you're more than welcome to. So that's kind of how I deal with ladies, or what I actually offer. But as far as forgiveness go, I believe forgiveness isn't just a nice thing to do. I think it is a powerful
Oh,
tool, and I totally believe in you when you're saying it's a superpower. And it's a thing that can to bring about a marvelous change in yourself. So once you start to forgive yourself, and we really understand that forgiveness and reconciliation are two totally different things. And I think a lot of us really misconstrue the fact that if I forgive you, that means that I have to reconcile with you. Two totally different things. I'll forgive you. I'll forgive some of the acts that you did. I'll forgive some of your actions. I'll forgive you for some of the things that you didn't do. But just because I forgave you does not mean that I still got to welcome you back in my space. There is different levels to that. And I believe one of the keys to happiness is forgiveness and being able to release, so that you can experience the joy in life. You're not able to really experience that joy and that fulfillment that you really need when you're harboring this hate and this unforgiveness in your heart. I think if we try to hold hate, if we're trying to hold hate with love, we're going to see who wins. Is hate going to overpower love, or is love going to overpower hate? You try and see which one is going to be more powerful. For me, what I love to teach is it's just easier to forgive. Why do you want to continue to hold on and to harbor on some of the things that made you angry? When we think about some of those things that made us angry and some of those things that frustrated us, we find ourselves going back into that moment, and you're like, oh, and I remember when, and your blood pressure starts going up. Now you want to start sweating, and you kind of like feel that moment. But once you release that and you let it go, again, here we go with divorcing the memory from the moment. Once you let that go, it doesn't mean that you're not going to remember stuff. You're definitely going to remember. You got married. So you're going to remember things that happen to you and things that's transition, but you just don't have to live in that moment. Feel free to have every emotion you desire, just don't live there. So that's what I had to do. I had to go through the process of letting it go. I had to go through the process of realizing I'm not that no more, but then I'm going to be greater than. So just because I'm not she then does not mean that I can't become a greater me now or later. Just don't stay stuck in the past. Greater is always ahead of you. That's what I believe.
So. I love what you said about when we're angry. We can feel that anger, but we can express the reasons for the anger as opposed to the emotion, as opposed to making it about the other person. We can make it about that situation and about how we feel. You made me feel this. I love those sentences because those are powerful. And sometimes we were not, we did not grow up with that understanding. So we actually have to learn it sometimes. And it's okay to start from a place of not knowing. And then we can actually begin to learn those things that build our relationships, because this is really what life is. It's very relational. Our universe is very relational. And whatever we need to do at work, at play, yes, we love spending time alone. But whatever else we need to do, whether it's to make money, whether it's to have kids or family, it's about relationships. So we need to learn to manage our emotions and not throw people under the bus,
right,
or actually not hurt our own self in the process, because it's a balance. It's about, because sometimes we overgive because we're trying to please, and sometimes we actually do not care about other people because we are too centered on ourselves. So it's a balance. It's about knowing that there is a reflection of us out there. And whatever we need to experience, we need to hold it within ourselves. And then we can see it outside of us. We can act it. And I love what you said about knowing that, there may be some emotion within me, but if I do not want to experience something different, like fear or hate, I need to hold love. Those emotions are always there for the picking, and it's what we feel. How would you define forgiveness? I would love to know if you were to have a definition for what forgiveness is. How would you define?
I think one thing I'm definitely going to tell you, forgiveness is a powerful tool. I definitely am going to tell you that. We can't punish ourselves for certain things that we've experienced. We got to kind of cease that feeling. So we got to process the feelings that we have. And again, it's a process of concluding resentment or anger as a result of the perceived offense or difference. Or the mistake. I have to even include that in there, even the mistakes that we've made. So, yeah.
Perception. I love that word.
That's my favorite.
Yes, because it's all about perceptions, which can change. Because we can be in a situation, an experience, an event that led to something happening to us. And that same thing happened to everybody else there. Everybody will that same event in different ways. So sometimes and this is not to minimize hurt, but it's to make us understand that this is a perspective, and we can change our perspective. It is not set in stone. Just as we think this person is never going to be of any use to us or never going to be loving to us. There is also a perspective or part of them, another timeline where they're actually loving as well.
Yeah.
And there has to be an element of accountability in owning that perspective. In this is the perspective that I hold, and I'm willing to let it go or I'm not. It's a choice. Forgiveness, I believe, is a choice. It is something we can choose to never do in this lifetime. We may say, okay, maybe I'm not forgiving you in this lifetime. No, not this lifetime.
I think there's 4 parts to it. I believe there's 4 parts of that. So you're forgiving of self. You're going to forgive others. And then it's like a reflection to find out if you're directly or indirectly punishing others for how you're feeling. And then when you're take a moment to reflect also. So I think it's 2 parts of forgiving yourself and forgiving others. And then find out if you're indirectly punishing somebody for how you're feeling. And then you're going to take your last reflection as to see you're going to forgive yourself for what. And then I say, whatever it is that you need to forgive yourself for. Insert whatever that is. You have to start to disrupt the system. And if you don't disrupt the system that you've been doing, things will never change. In order for things to change, you have to disrupt your current routine and the way that you're doing things in order for you to get to wherever it is that you want to be. So in order for you to do that, you got to disrupt some things. And I believe that's something super beneficial and it's something super powerful that we have to do if we want to see change, if we want to start acting a certain way, we want to start seeing different results, we have to disrupt that system.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a new way. We have to do things differently if we want to see different results. That's beautiful. I know you're also an author, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your book?
So I have 2 books that I have written. One is called I Choose Me. I believe we got to take a different perspective on being selfish. We hear the word selfish and you're like, oh, you don't need to be selfish. Stop being so selfish. What's wrong with being selfish? I think if we take better care of ourselves, the airline always likes to tell us to secure your mask first before you decide to go take on anybody else or trying to help anybody else. You got to secure your mask first. So securing your mask and taking care of self-reflections and making sure self is okay. I don't think is a negative connotation that we have to have in being selfish. So that book is called I Choose Me, and it's okay to choose you. We take care of everybody else, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, friends, family, co-workers. We take care of everybody else, but we also have to take the time out to choose us and to be okay with us. Second book that I wrote is called Goal Digger. I love helping individuals set goals for themselves and to be authentically you. I grew up in a household where, of course, I was a preacher's kid. However, my mother wanted me to be a lawyer because she always tells me, you love arguing. So because you love arguing, she wanted me to be a lawyer. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I liked for my life. So Goal Digger came about is because there's a lot of times you have individuals that are around you or family members that influence you to become the doctor, the lawyer, or whatever it is you want, teacher, you name it, whatever they wanted you to do, that's what they wanted you to do. But you take a moment to do some reflection and to find out what's the goals that you want and to achieve it. Are these goals true and authentic to what I want to do with my life? And so we kind of go through some digging, setting goals for ourselves and making sure what we want to do is true and authentic to the life that we want to see and what we want to live to make everybody happy, but starts with self. So those are 2 books that I did. And then I got a journal out there too, so you can do some reflecting, some writing on it and feeling how we feel. So I can't say that that's a book I wrote because it's not a written book. It's just a journal that I offer so that you get a chance to do some self-reflecting. And then you get an opportunity to look back over your life as you've grown and see where you were at. And this is where I'm at now. Like, oh my God, I have grown. So those are my bodies of work.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That second book.
Well, GOAL. That's it right there. It says Goal Digger. So it's a setting a goal for yourself, kind of like a soccer goal. You know, you set a goal for yourself. And we're digging through that. Yeah. So thank you.
I love it. So your course, is it an online self-study course or is it So it's at their own pace.
Yeah, you have two options. You can do it at your own pace. You can just buy the course and you do it as you so desire to, whenever you see fit. I really don't like to say that whenever you see fit, because this is a process that you go through. And then sometimes as we're forgiving ourselves, it becomes uncomfortable. So you don't want to just kind of say, okay, I don't want to do that. It's a process. When you're definitely going, if you broke your arm, you got your cast on and it's going to feel better. It's actually going to end up getting back together, but there's some pain that you got to go through in order for your healing to occur. So I would say don't just do it at your own pace and at your leisure. Still go ahead and go through the 6 weeks, get it taken care of. Sometimes it may take a little bit longer because as you're going through those feelings, it's like, no, I need an extra week. I need an extra 2 weeks. You know what? Hold on, time out. I need some time because this was some deep stuff and you made me think of stuff that I buried, because sometimes we'll do that. We'll definitely bury some of the things because I just didn't want to, I don't want to remember that. I want to get out of that. So it's kind of certain things you kind of hide from yourself as you're going through the process. You're like, oh man, I forgot about that. So you can either do it on your own or you can set up a session with me and we'll go through the process.
Brilliant. And sometimes we have to repress these things to survive. When something happens, if we hold on to it and keep focusing on it, we're not able to live. We're not able to thrive. So sometimes we have to bury it. And then a time comes when we can no longer move forward unless we see it, acknowledge it, and let it go. So I really love that you have those two options for those who are able to deal with it on their own and those who need some support, because we've got to be okay with asking for help.
Absolutely.
We've got to be okay with getting help when we need it. What advice would you give to young teenage girls who are in love and they find themselves in that situation where they are, they've taken in, and what would you advise them to do based on your own experience and the path that you have chosen?
Yeah, I'd say don't jump too fast. I know we love him and oh my God, he's so dreamy and he's cute and he got cute hair, pretty eyes, or whatever it is. Whatever it could be, super tall, thick, whatever it is that you dream and aspire in a man, don't go too fast. So, take some time out to pay attention to him and don't dive so deeply into him that you lose sight of who you are. I definitely am totally the submissive kind of wife. And I definitely believe in catering to my husband. However, you never want to be so catering and so all in that you forget who you are. So making sure that you have an even balance is, sure, I love him. Sure, I want to invest in him, but make sure you pay attention to some of the signs, because sometimes signs are there and we like to ignore the signs that we see. Sometimes they're not right for you, but you allow love to cover, that particular fault that you've seen in that individual. Some things are coverable and you're like, all right, I'm a compromise. But there are also some things that are just things that you don't want and you don't like and you can't see yourself compromising with. Don't allow his beauty and good charm to override those red flags that you see. So pay attention to those flags. Whatever you see and hear, make sure you take heed on. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to be rude and disrespectful and break up in a nasty way. You definitely can go ahead and part ways without being so rude and nasty with it. But pay attention to the signs. I will always say that. Love yourself and pay attention.
I love that. Because there's wisdom that comes from our experiences, and I wanted to hear your wisdom. I also have one last question around your experience. Sure. What advice would you give to women who have been through that, young girls, young women, who are now going through divorce or who have just divorced? What advice would you give to them?
You are still worth it. So just because you divorced and just because it didn't work out, that doesn't mean that everybody is against you. That does not mean that nobody loves you, because you still have a world where there's a lot of people that appreciate you. Don't allow that one person who you're not working out with become the whole world. Sometimes we'll say, oh my gosh, everybody hates me. But is it really everybody? Or did you have a disagreement with someone and it was just for that moment? I still love you. I still still appreciate you. We just didn't see eye to eye. Two opposing views can operate in the same space. So we have to just make sure that we are focusing in on loving ourselves and appreciating those who appreciate us. Again, just because it didn't work out with one individual, that does not mean everybody hates you. That doesn't mean that you're not worth anything. You're still loved. You're still valuable. You're still worthy. You still are appreciative, and you're a lovable individual. Don't allow anybody to take your worth or your value away from you.
Oh, I love that. You have so much nugget. So many nuggets.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. Don't be flattering me like that, Toots. Hold on.
You have such a great sense of humor. I love it.
I appreciate it. Kid you not, this humor is what kind of got me over.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for me finding a different perspective in life, and seeing the good. I mean, I know you can't always be bubbly, and for the most part, I am. But then I also have my moments where I just don't feel like it. And I just really want to sit back and be like, no, I don't want to laugh. I don't want to smile. I don't want to show you guys my pearly whites. I don't want to do any of that. But because I was able to find a different perspective and find the good in certain things that was bad, that's what was able to kind of like keep me to going. So my laughter, my joy, I know I'm corny. So because I know I'm corny, I embrace that. And so I try to make my corny work for me. So,
beautiful. That's beautiful. So where can people find you, Tiffany, when they want to connect?
You can find me all over the internet streets. My handle is the People's Cheerleader on everything. I won't say everything because there are certain social media sites that I'm not on. But if you're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or even Twitter, I am the People's Cheerleader. That's where you'll typically find me. Even on YouTube, I am the People's Cheerleader. So it's just
the People's Cheerleader is the hook. Beautiful, mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you for joining me today, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Before we go, I would like to read a section of my book, Daily Soul Bytes. Is now available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold online. This book is really about higher perspectives. I share a lot of nuggets around higher perspectives, unconditional love in different areas. And it's about increasing familiarity of higher perspectives so we can align to them. Because what we are familiar with is what we begin to align and take action. Our behaviors are really guided by the things we align to. So I want to read a section on forgiveness now. Forgiveness is an alternative to holding a grudge or painful memory. The memory may remind us of something that we perceive to be wrong. It does not matter who was right or wrong, but the memory stays and comes to mind at the oddest times in our day-to-day. For instance, we're just about to get into a lovely relationship, and the memory of a deceit we suffered in the last relationship comes up, leading us to give up on the relationship that really had quite a nice potential, but did not get a chance. Forgiving our own self and others for past events really is the easier alternative compared to the many times the present time will continue to be impacted. This is why anytime an old hurt, painful memory comes up, it is worth choosing to forgive and let go. This allows us to make the most of our best opportunities now in the direction of our present desires. So that's forgiveness chapter, this forgiveness soul bite from my book. Thank you, Tiffany. And I would like to thank our listeners for joining us today. I invite you to subscribe and like and share. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bytes Show. Bye-bye.
See ya.